No space? No problem. So you want to build a model railroad. You dream of miles of multi-track main lines, hundreds of industries, and thousands of locomotives and rolling stock, but then you come back to reality and realize that you'll never fit that dream layout into your one-bedroom apartment, or if you're lucky, a spare bedroom. The reality is that most of us will never have the kind of space to realize that dream layout, but that doesn't mean you can't still enjoy model railroading, just maybe in a more realistic way. So today we're going to be taking a look at the first layout in a series of videos that I'm planning to do on this topic. When it comes to building a model railroad in a small space, the first thing you have to decide on is, do you want to be able to run a train continuously, or do you want to build point to point? Obviously, you can fit a lot more in a point-to-point space that you can really in any scale than you can with continuous running. When it comes to HO, you generally need to have at least an 18-inch radius curve in order to turn around, which is going to be a little bit over 3 feet, because you have to have a little bit of space on each side because the radius is measured from the inside of the track. Now, in N scale, you can get quite a bit smaller, which we're going to see on this layout here today as I take you through my slideshow of the building process. And I don't have a lot of video of this because obviously I started building this about a year and a half before I decided to come back to YouTube. So when I developed this layout initially, it wasn't specifically intended to be a small layout for the purpose of it being a small layout. I had come across another YouTuber's video about getting started in model railroading as opposed to waiting for your dream layout. Because once you do eventually have potentially the space to build your dream layout, you're not going to have the skills that you need to actually put it together, and you're still going to be stuck trying to figure out where to start. So I decided to put together this very small 2 foot by 4 foot N scale layout. I chose this size because I wanted to have continuous running. That was a key component. There are plenty of things that we can do well with a point-to-point layout, which we'll look at in future episodes, but I wanted specifically to have continuous running here. So what I did, I got some spare 1x4 boards to build the frame out, which I had leftovers from my HO building project. I put just a little piece of like cork type board above that, and then a couple pieces of 2x2 pink foam, painted that over, and then I used some old Atlas Snaptrack, glued that down to the layout, which you can see, and then began adding scenery and experimenting with that here. Again, this is an N scale. The outermost radius curve I used was the 11-inch radius, and then the inner radius was, I think it's 9 3/4, which is generally the smallest curve that you would want to have in N scale. You can go tighter if you have very specific locomotives and rolling stock, but it's generally not recommended. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't recommend going below the 11-inch radius with most things. And obviously the Kato snap track that we have that we're going to be using on the next N scale project that I'm going to do is even it's a step above the 11. I don't remember exactly what it is offhand, but yes, it's a little bit broader, and that's probably what I'm going to be using as the tightest curve on that layout. And so, as you can see, we have a fully functional layout here with a double track main line that fits in a 2 foot by 4 foot space. I measured the height, and at the highest point of the tallest tree on the layout, it comes at about 8 inches. I had originally built it with the intention of it being small enough that I could store it underneath my bed or underneath the love seat in my living room. It is just a little bit too tall. The height from the floor to the bottom of the bed frame is actually 7 inches. And so it's just about 1 inch too tall there. However, if I shortened up a couple of the trees, it would still fit. You could obviously adjust this if you were to build a similar layout by making these boards shorter, but I just used, like I said, leftover pieces of wood that I had from construction on the HO scale layout here. And so, yeah, so this is something that you can accomplish in a very small space. Even if, like I said, you're living in an apartment or something like that, you could have continuous running. You could have multiple trains running at once. You still have space for yard and plenty of space for scenics. Again, this is also if you're specifically looking for continuous running. We'll be looking at some of the things you can do with point-to-point and switching puzzles and things like that in a future episode, but this is just a very brief overview of what I had here. And of course, this layout is not complete Been working on this project for about a year and a half, but we still have some section here that needs to be ballasted. I hadn't done that yet because I did need to put in another electrical feeder or two for the yard, and also I have a dead spot over here behind the engine shed on that inside line, which has developed over time. I'm not sure exactly what caused that, but it's probably having this old sectional used Atlas track. So there we have it, folks. That was a brief look at my N-scale 2-foot by 4-foot layout. The first of my what you can do with model railroading in a small space series, I guess. Well, I'll call it a series when I actually have at least 2 videos, but for now, this is just the first video, taking a look at my N-scale demonstrator project layout, whatever you want to call it. Next time, I think we'll probably take a look at something in HO, maybe getting more into the point-to-point realm, maybe look at some shunting puzzles, switching puzzles like the Inglenook. That's a very common, very simple one that you can do with N-scale in a very small space. And at some point in the future, we may even look at something else. Dare I say it? O-gauge? We'll see. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll catch you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day.